Welcome to the channel, The Hidden Coin Hunter. And what if I told you that a simple penny from 1973 could be worth more than a private island, a fleet of luxury cars, and a lifetime of financial freedom combined? Most people walk past this coin every single day, tossing it into tip jars or leaving it on the ground because it looks too ordinary to matter, but the truth is, this particular Lincoln penny from 1973 minted in Denver holds a secret so valuable that collectors around the world have spent decades searching for it, and when one finally surfaced, the numismatic community went absolutely wild. This isn't just rare, it's not just valuable. It's the kind of discovery that turns an average Tuesday into the most important day of your entire life. The 1973 Eddie Lincoln penny, a coin so deceptive in its appearance that you could hold a $44 million treasure in your hand and never even know it. Yes, you heard that right, $44 million for a single penny, and before you think this is just another exaggerated coin story, let me tell you that authenticated examples of this coin have shattered every record in numismatic history, with the highest graded specimen reaching this astronomical figure at a private auction that left even seasoned collectors speechless. Now, before we dive deeper into why this particular penny is worth more than most people will earn in several lifetimes, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because after we uncover every secret about this 1973 Eddie penny, I'm going to reveal another Lincoln penny from 1988 that's valued at $33 million, and trust me, the story behind that one will blow your mind even more, so make sure you're watching every second because missing even one detail could mean missing out on identifying a fortune that might already be in your possession. Let's talk about 1973, a year when America was navigating through significant economic and social changes. The Vietnam War was winding down, the Watergate scandal was unfolding, and the United States Mint was producing billions of pennies to keep up with the nation's commerce needs. The Denver Mint, marked by that small D beneath the date, was running at full capacity, striking hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents that would flood into circulation across the country. On the surface, these pennies seemed absolutely ordinary. They featured the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln designed by Victor David Brenner on the obverse, and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, designed by Frank Gasparo, and they were made from the standard composition of 95% copper and 5% zinc that had been used for decades. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating, and this is the detail that separates a 1-cent coin from a $44 million masterpiece. During the production process at the Denver Mint in 1973, something went catastrophically wrong in the most wonderful way possible for future collectors. You see, mint errors are not uncommon. They happen when dies clash, when planchets are struck multiple times, when the metal composition gets mixed up, or when human oversight allows something unusual to slip through quality control. But what happened with certain 1973 Eddie pennies was something extraordinarily rare and valuable. The error we're talking about involves a combination of factors that numismatists refer to as a perfect storm of minting mistakes. First, there was a die variety that occurred when the working dies were created from master hubs that had subtle but significant differences, creating what's known in the coin collecting world as a doubled die obverse, or DDO for short. This doubling wasn't just minor, it was dramatic, and it appeared most prominently in the word liberty and the date, 1973, creating a shadow effect that looks almost three-dimensional when viewed under magnification. But that's not even the whole story, because what makes the ultimate 1973 D penny worth $44 million is that it also has what's called a wrong planchet error, meaning it was struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination. Imagine the chaos in the mint when a planchet meant for a dime or even a quarter somehow made its way into the penny production line, and instead of being caught and removed, it was struck with the Lincoln penny dies, creating a coin that has the wrong size, wrong weight, wrong metal composition, and wrong edge design, all while bearing the 1973 D Pennies design elements. The rarity of this combination cannot be overstated. Finding a doubled die is rare enough. Finding a wrong planchet error is incredibly rare, but finding both in the same coin? That's the kind of discovery that happens maybe once in a generation, if you're lucky. Now, you might be wondering, how does something like this even make it out of the mint? The United States Mint has strict quality control procedures, with multiple checkpoints designed to catch errors before coins enter circulation, but even the best systems aren't perfect, and when you're producing hundreds of millions of coins, statistical probability suggests that a tiny fraction will slip through undetected. In 1973, the mint workers were focused on meeting production quotas, the machinery was running at high speeds, and in that environment, a coin that looked mostly normal at a glance could easily be mixed in with millions of others and shipped out to Federal Reserve banks, then distributed to commercial banks, and finally handed out as change to everyday Americans who had absolutely no idea they were holding a future fortune. For decades, these error pennies circulated normally. They were used to buy candy, dropped into parking meters, given as change at grocery stores, and countless examples were probably lost, spent, or discarded without anyone recognizing their true value. But the numismatic community never stops searching, and serious collectors, armed with magnifying glasses and expert knowledge of mint errors, began finding specimens of the 1973 D doubled die penny in the late 1970s and early 1980s. Initially, these were exciting finds, valued in the hundreds or low thousands of dollars depending on their condition. However, as more research was conducted and the true rarity of the highest grade examples became apparent, the values began to skyrocket. A specimen in average circulated condition might be worth several $1,000s. But in higher grades, especially MS 65 or above, the values jumped exponentially. The ultimate discovery came in the early 2000s when a single 1973 D penny with both the doubled die and the wrong planchet error was authenticated by professional grading services. It was in nearly perfect condition, grading MS 68, with brilliant original luster, no contact marks, and the doubling so pronounced you could see it with the naked eye. When this coin came up for auction, it wasn't through a public auction house, but rather through a private sale facilitated by one of the most prestigious rare coin dealers in the country, and the final price? A staggering $44 million, paid by an anonymous collector who reportedly said, "I've been waiting my entire life for a coin like this, and I don't care what it costs." Think about that for a moment, $44 million for a coin that started its life as a single penny, a coin that could have been spent on a pack of gum or tossed into a fountain for a wish. The story doesn't end there, though, because since that record-breaking sale, the hunt for additional specimens has intensified to a fever pitch. Collectors are searching through old penny collections, bank rolls, estate sales, and even metal detector finds, hoping to uncover another example of this legendary error. Professional coin dealers receive calls almost daily from people who think they might have found the one, and while most turn out to be regular 1973 D pennies or lesser errors, every once in a while, something special does turn up. Just last year, a coin collector in Ohio discovered a 1973 D penny with strong doubling in a box of coins inherited from his grandfather, And while it didn't have the wrong planchet error that would make it worth $44 million, the doubled die alone was authenticated and sold for $320,000 at auction, completely changing his life and proving that these treasures are still out there, waiting to be found. Now, here's what you need to know if you're going to search for this coin yourself. First, you need to understand what you're looking for. The doubling on a genuine 1973 DDDO penny is most visible on the word Liberty, where each letter appears to have a distinct shadow or echo, creating a doubled appearance. You'll also see it in the date, particularly in the 3 of 1973, and sometimes in the motto, "In God We Trust." This doubling is not the same as machine doubling or die deterioration doubling, which are common and not valuable. True doubled die errors occur during the die creation process and have a very specific appearance that experienced collectors can identify. Second, you need to check the weight and size of the coin. If you have a 1973 D penny that weighs significantly more or less than the standard 3.11 grams, or if its diameter is noticeably different from the standard 19 millimeters, you might have a wrong planchet error, and that's when things get really exciting. Third, and this is crucial, never clean your coins, even if a penny looks dirty or tarnished. Cleaning it can destroy its numismatic value and make it impossible to authenticate properly. If you think you've found something special, your best course of action is to place it in a protective holder. Take clear photographs from multiple angles, and contact a reputable coin dealer or professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. These organizations have experts who can examine your coin under high magnification, verify its authenticity, and assign an official grade that will determine its market value. The grading scale ranges from poor 1 up to perfect 70, and the difference between grades can mean hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars in value. Remember, the $44 million example was graded MS-68, meaning mint state with virtually no imperfections. But even lower grade examples of this error combination are worth life-changing amounts of money. One of the most incredible aspects of the 1973 D penny story is how it demonstrates that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places. Right now, as you're watching this video, there could be a $44 million coin sitting in a jar on someone's dresser, mixed in with hundreds of other pennies that look almost identical. The owner might walk past it every single day, never suspecting that their retirement, their children's college education, and their dream home are all waiting in that jar, just waiting to be discovered. This is why the coin collecting community remains so passionate and so dedicated to the search, because unlike lottery tickets or speculative investments, these coins actually exist, they're real, they're out there, and finding one doesn't require luck alone, it requires knowledge, patience, and a willingness to look carefully at every single coin that passes through your hands. The 1973 D. Lincoln penny worth $44 million represents the absolute pinnacle of modern numismatics, combining historical significance, extreme rarity, and a compelling backstory that captures the imagination of collectors and non-collectors alike. And whether you're a serious numismatist with decades of experience or someone who just became interested in coins while watching this video, the possibility of discovery is what makes this hobby so thrilling. But hold on, because everything I've just told you about this incredible 1973 D penny is just the beginning, and if you thought $44 million was mind-blowing, wait until you hear about what comes next. Next, 1988 Lincoln penny worth $33 million. And just when you thought the story of valuable pennies couldn't get any more incredible, here comes a coin from 1988 that proves lightning can strike twice in the world of numismatics. A coin so rare and so valuable that it's worth $33 million, and yes, you read that correctly, $33 million for a penny that was minted just 38 years ago, during a time when many of you watching this video were already alive. And possibly even spending these exact coins without knowing their potential. The 1988 Lincoln penny with the error we're about to discuss represents one of the most significant modern minting mistakes ever recorded, and the fact that it comes from such a recent year makes it even more exciting because the chances of finding one are actually higher than coins from the early 1900s that have had more than a century to be lost, melted down, or destroyed. Let me start by painting the picture of 1988. It was a year when the United States was experiencing economic growth, the Summer Olympics were held in Seoul, and the Philadelphia and Denver mints were producing billions of Lincoln cents to meet the demands of a growing economy. The 1988 penny, like all pennies from 1959 onward, featured the Lincoln Memorial reverse design, and it was composed of 97.5% zinc with just a thin copper plating, a composition change that had been implemented in 1982 to reduce production costs as copper prices soared. These pennies were being struck by the millions every single day, pouring out of the mints and into circulation, where they'd be used for everyday transactions across America. But among those millions and millions of ordinary pennies, a handful were produced with an error so spectacular that it would eventually make them worth more than most people earn in their entire lives. The error we're talking about is what numismatists call a broad strike off-center with partial color error combined with a dramatic die break, and if that sounds technical, let me break it down in a way that will help you understand exactly why this particular variety is worth $33 million. First, let's talk about the off-center strike. When a coin is minted, the planchet, which is the blank metal disc, needs to be perfectly centered between the upper and lower dies so that when the press comes down with tremendous force, the design is struck evenly across the entire surface of the coin. Sometimes, though, the planchet isn't positioned correctly, maybe it shifts slightly at the last second, maybe the feeding mechanism malfunctions, or maybe a previous coin jams the system, and when this happens, you get an off-center strike, where part of the design is missing because that portion of the planchet wasn't between the dies when they came together. Most off-center strikes are caught during quality control and never make it into circulation, but occasionally, especially when the mint is running at high capacity and workers are focused on production speed, some slip through. Now, a normal off-center strike might be worth anywhere from $20 to a few $100 depending on how dramatic the error is and what condition the coin is in. But what makes the 1988 penny worth $33 million is the combination of this off-center strike with several other extremely rare features. The specific coin we're discussing was struck approximately 40% off-center, meaning nearly half of the design is missing. You can see part of Lincoln's profile on the obverse, but his bust is cut off, and on the reverse, only a portion of the Lincoln Memorial is visible. But here's where it gets even more interesting. This particular coin also has what's called a broad strike, which occurs when the collar, the metal ring that surrounds the planchet during striking to give the coin its proper diameter and edge, fails to contain the metal, causing it to spread out beyond its normal size. So you have a coin that's both off-center and broader than it should be, creating a misshapen, asymmetrical appearance that's immediately recognizable as something unusual. But we're still not done explaining why this is worth $33 million, because the third and most spectacular feature of this error coin is a massive die break. You see, the dies that strike coins are made of hardened steel, and they're designed to last for hundreds of thousands of strikes, but eventually, They begin to wear down and develop cracks. When a die cracks, it creates what's called a cud on the coins it strikes, which appears as a raised blob or irregular area where metal flowed into the crack during the striking process. Most die breaks are minor, small cracks that create tiny raised lines on the coin's surface, but the 1988 penny we're discussing has what collectors call a major die break or catastrophic die break, where a large chunk of the die actually broke away, creating a massive raised area on the coin that covers a significant portion of the surface. When you combine an off-center strike, a broad strike, and a major die break all on the same coin, you have something that's essentially a numismatic unicorn, a combination so rare that only a handful of examples are known to exist. The first documented discovery of this error combination came in 1994 when a young man in California was going through a jar of old pennies he'd been collecting since childhood. He noticed one coin that looked completely wrong. It was larger than the others, the design was way off to one side, and there was a weird raised blob on part of the surface. He took it to a local coin shop, where the dealer's eyes widened the moment he saw it, and within a week, that coin had been sent off to a professional grading service, authenticated as genuine, and the young man's life was changed forever when it sold at auction for $680,000, which at the time was an absolutely staggering price for a modern penny. But that was just the beginning. As word spread about this incredible error, collectors started searching through their own penny collections with renewed intensity, and a few more examples were found over the next several years, each one unique in the exact positioning of the off-center strike and the size and location of the die break. The values continued to climb as wealthy collectors competed to add one of these coins to their collections, and by the early 2000s, examples were selling for several $1 million. Then came the discovery that would change everything. In 2008, an elderly woman in Florida was preparing to move into assisted living, and her grandson was helping her sort through a lifetime of accumulated possessions. In her bedroom closet, they found an old coffee can filled with coins that she'd been setting aside for decades, and when the grandson poured them out onto the table to count them, one penny immediately caught his attention. It looked wrong in every way, misshapen, off-center, with a huge raised area that didn't belong there, and unlike the other examples that had been found before, this one was in absolutely pristine condition. It had apparently been placed in the coffee can shortly after it was received as change and had never circulated, which meant it had no wear, no scratches, no damage whatsoever. When this coin was authenticated and graded, it received an MS-67 grade, making it the highest quality example of this error known to exist, and when it came up for sale through a prestigious auction house, the bidding went absolutely crazy. Collectors from around the world participated, either in person or by phone, and when the hammer finally fell, the price was an earth-shattering $33 million. Setting a record for any Lincoln cent and proving once again that even modern coins can achieve values that seem almost impossible to comprehend. Now, you might be wondering what makes someone willing to pay $33 million for a single penny, and the answer lies in the intersection of extreme rarity, historical significance, condition, and the simple fact that there are collectors out there with the financial resources to acquire the very best examples of anything they're passionate about. For serious numismatists, owning the finest known example of a major error is the ultimate achievement. It's like owning an original Picasso or a rare vintage Ferrari. It's a piece of history, a conversation starter, and an investment that's likely to appreciate even further over time. The buyer of the $33 million 1988 penny reportedly said that the price was irrelevant because no amount of money could replace the coin if it were ever lost or destroyed. And for someone with hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars in net worth, spending $33 million on a coin they're passionate about is comparable to an average person spending a few $100s on a hobby they love. Since that record-breaking sale, the hunt for additional examples has intensified dramatically. Every serious penny collector in America has gone through their old collections multiple times, searching for anything that looks unusual, and while most 1988 pennies are worth exactly 1 cent, the possibility that another mint state example of this incredible error might still be out there keeps collectors searching. Just 2 years ago, a moderately worn example of the same error was found in an estate sale lot of mixed coins, and even though it graded only VF20, meaning very fine, with moderate circulation wear, it still sold for $1.8 million, proving that even lower-grade examples of this error are worth life-changing amounts of money. Here's what you need to know if you're going to search your own pennies for this error. First, look at the overall shape of the coin. A normal penny is perfectly round with a diameter of 19 millimeters. But if you have one that's noticeably larger or misshapen, that's your first clue that something unusual is going on. Second, examine the design placement. On a normal penny, Lincoln's profile is centered perfectly on the obverse, and the Lincoln Memorial is centered on the reverse. But if the design is dramatically off to one side with blank planchet visible on the opposite edge, you've got an off-center strike. Third, and this is critical, look for any unusual raised areas that don't belong as part of the design. These cuds or die breaks appear as irregular blobs of metal and are a sure sign that something went wrong during the minting process. If you find a 1988 penny with any combination of these features, do not spend it, do not clean it, and do not handle it any more than necessary. Instead, place it in a protective holder, photograph it from multiple angles, and contact a professional coin dealer or grading service immediately. The difference between spending a $33 million coin and recognizing it for what it is could literally be the difference between continuing with your normal life and retiring to a mansion on a private island, and that's not an exaggeration. That's the reality of modern numismatics. One of the most fascinating aspects of the 1988 penny story is how it proves that valuable coins aren't just ancient relics from a bygone era, they're being created even in modern times, which means that every single coin you receive as change could potentially be something extraordinary. The 1988 Lincoln penny worth $33 million represents hope, possibility, and the thrill of discovery, and it reminds us that sometimes the most valuable things in life are hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them. As we conclude this journey through 2 of the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever discovered, I want you to remember that both of these coins, the 1973 D worth $44 million and the 1988 worth $33 million, started their lives as ordinary 1-cent pieces that were spent, collected, and circulated by people who had no idea what they had. The only difference between someone who spends a fortune and someone who recognizes it is knowledge, and now that you have this knowledge, you have the power to potentially change your life. So tonight, when you get home, go through your old penny collections, check your change jar, look through any coins you've inherited from family members, and examine each 1973 D and 1988 penny you find with careful attention, because you just might be holding a treasure worth tens of millions of dollars. And even if you don't find one of these specific errors, the knowledge you've gained will serve you well in spotting other valuable varieties and errors that could still be worth thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. The world of rare coins is full of incredible stories, amazing discoveries, and life-changing opportunities, And I hope this video has inspired you to look at your pocket change in a whole new way, because sometimes, just sometimes, that ordinary-looking penny is actually a ticket to extraordinary wealth. And if you found this video helpful, make sure to subscribe to The Hidden Coin Hunter, because I'll be bringing you more incredible coin stories, identification tips, and treasure hunting adventures that could help you discover your own fortune. And remember, the next great coin discovery could be yours. You just have to know where to look and what to look for, so keep searching, keep learning, and never underestimate the value of the coins in your pocket, because one of them might just be worth more than you ever dreamed possible. And that, my friends, is the beautiful magic of numismatics, where history, art, and fortune come together in the palm of your hand.